discussion is going to be led by Mr. Shenoy, who is of course the track MC, as we'd like to call the chairperson of this conversation, and of course we'd request you to stay back for the vote of thanks later. So as Mr. Shenoy said, let's call upon our eminent panelists one by one, starting with Mr. Ganesh Natarajan, Chairman 5F World and Lighthouse Communities. Dr. Ganesh is a prominent business leader, technologist, and philanthropist, serving as the executive chairman and co-founder of 5F World, GTT Data Solutions, and Lighthouse Communities Foundation. With an illustrious career spanning over 30 plus years, including 2 successful CEO tenures at Aptech and Zenzar Technologies, he's somebody who's been instrumental in driving technology, entrepreneurship, and people-centric leadership. Let's give him a warm round of applause as we acknowledge his presence. We also have Mr. Rajeev Kher, CMD Sara Plast, who's joining us, a pioneering entrepreneur who's revolutionized the sanitization industry in India by introducing the concept of portable sanitization. As the CEO of Sara Plast, Rajeev led the company to become a market leader in eco-friendly and sustainable sanitization products and services. His innovative approach, ladies and gentlemen, has earned him international recognition, and he served as the only Indian member of board of the Portable Sanitization Association International USA and an independent director of the Toilet Board Coalition, Geneva, Switzerland. Let's give him a warm round of applause to acknowledge his presence. Also joining us on stage is going to be our next panelist, Mr. Ron Mehta, President Maker Bhawan Foundation, an organization which is focused on fostering creativity, innovation, and social impact through the development of a maker culture. The foundation supports initiatives that provide individuals and communities with the tools, resources, and knowledge needed to create, build, and innovate, particularly in the context of social challenges and sustainable development. As the president, Ron Mehta leads the organization's strategic direction and ensures that its mission of promoting innovation and creativity through making is fulfilled. Let's acknowledge his presence with a warmer round of applause. Thank you so much, Mr. Mehta, for joining us. And now I'd like to leave it in the able hands of Mr. Shenoy to take forward the panel discussion with the eminent panelists.
Thank you very much for bringing the panelists on board. We are pressed for time, as you know, as always happens at these conferences. So I'm going to request each of the panelists to very briefly make some opening comments before we open the panel for discussions and questions. So may I request Ganesh Nataraj to kick it off with some of your comments, please.
Sure, thank you very much. And as a matter of background, I mean, I kind of shuttle my time between large boards, Honeywell, State Bank of India, Hinduja Group, and the social sector. And I'm giving you this introduction because I want to talk a little bit about what we do with technology in these activities. The 2 large social initiatives I'm involved in, one is an entity called GTT Foundation, which primarily works on women empowerment and the whole EV movement in terms of training people for that, both in terms of support, marketing, everything else. And the other one is Lighthouse Communities Foundation, which is very well known to Wheels Foundation, where we do work in 14 cities in India, working with urban youth and ensuring that they have the agency, the skills, and the patience to stay on in jobs, which has been a big issue in the whole jobs initiative in India. Why is technology important to us? Because I'm a firm believer that we have to start any NGO or any social enterprise with a clear definition of scope, what makes us relevant, what makes us scalable, and then we have to quickly move to scale. Because in a country as large as we are, and this morning we heard that there are over 135 countries which are above us in the Human Development Index. Our GDP per capita at $2,800 is really 1/5 of the global average. So there's a huge amount of work to be done if you have to realize our vision of being a Viksit Bharat. So just to give you a few case studies, and I'll stop there. In Lighthouse, for instance, we realized that it's not enough for counseling to tell a slum child who has actually been ill-treated probably for 16 years of his or her life, and what she could become. So we actually use technology like augmented reality, virtual reality, metaverse, to take them through a metaverse journey. So let's say somebody is thinking of being a nursing assistant. we could actually take the person into the operating theater of, let's say if it's in Pune, it could be Jahangir Hospital, and they are actually seeing themselves assisting a doctor, taking the blood pressure, etc., etc. And suddenly kind of dawns the realization कि अगर वो कर सकता है तो मैं भी कर सकती हूँ. And that is, I think, better than 1,000 words in terms of describing. That's the advantage of technology. If you look at what we do in the EV business, for instance, I mean, we are looking at scale. I mean, as the EVs scale massively across the country, both in terms of service, in terms of support, and in terms of charging stations, we want to make sure there is manpower available for each one of these. And here we are using a very interesting AI agentic platform called Skills Alpha. So the idea is after that initial training, they can actually choose the pathways. So the person has been trained on what is EV or autonomous vehicles, and after that they explore pathways which is enabled by an AI bot, and that actually helps them to say, if I were a service engineer in EV, what would that entail? What are the skills I already have? What do I need to unlearn, relearn, and probably learn new skills altogether? And it'll take them through the skills journey. I mean, as many of you may be aware who are interested in skills, when India started off on its skills mission, including the National Skills Development Corporation, there was a fairly tragic initial outcome of hardly 12% of the lakhs of people getting trained taking up jobs, and 50% of that 12% actually dropping out within 3 months. So we want to ensure that the agency lies within the individual, enabled by the AI bot and agentic AI, to make their own choices. That if I choose that this is what I want to do, I want to be in EV sales, I'm less likely to not accept a job, definitely not likely to drop out very quickly. So I think these are two examples of agentic AI and metaverse which we're finding extremely useful in converting scope to scale. And I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Ganesh. Now I'm going to request Mr. Rajeev Kher of Sara Plast to please make some opening remarks about his venture.
So I work in a company that is, well, I like to say this, and you know, I'm from the SHIT space, and there is a lot of IT in SHIT also, and we've been able to harness this over the years, and we've used technology in a very large way in our company. We provide toilets to rural and urban India, and you know, you can imagine the scale at which the operations are provided, especially like the Kumbh Mela, for example, which is happening right now. There is a Pandharpur Wari that happens, and of course several events that happen all over India. Not only do we manage the toilets and the cleaning of these toilets, but also the disposal of the waste and also creating value from the waste that is created. So we have created a cycle, a complete chain, and considerable amount of technology has been used, whether it's collection of waste. There are apps for collection. It's a route optimization software that we've made. Whether it is for cleaning, we have a visual cleaning mechanism which is also connected to servers for our customers. And recently we've also developed robots. They are in the primitive stage right now, still being piloted, but to provide robots for even cleaning of toilets. So we're trying to use technology to the best of our ability in sanitation, and we are the first company to provide portable toilets and cleaning technologies. So we hope that you know, with this intervention and the big IT wave that's happening in India and especially startups coming over here, and the amount of interest that it's generating, I think we'll be able to really scale up rapidly and provide better solutions to the people in India.
Thank you, Rajeev. Finally, I'm going to request my good friend Ron Mehta to make his opening remarks, please.
Good afternoon. I represent Maker Bhawan Foundation, and I currently serve as the president of Maker Bhawan Foundation. What we do is, it was started by generous donation from a distinguished alumnus of IIT Bombay, Dr. Hemant Kanakia, who couldn't make it today, so I'm pitching in for him. We mainly believe in our principle of encouraging engineering technical students to learn by doing, learn by using, and learn by making. And we have 4 distinct verticals. The most common one, most popular one, is we have established 12 tinkerers labs across many higher education institutions like IIT Bombay, IIT Gandhinagar, IIT Jammu. The most recent one was IIT Ropar, and also at Institute of Chemical Technology here in Mumbai, and several other colleges. So these are student-managed labs that are open 24/7, and we basically work with the faculty in charge, but the students manage it. We stock that with some high-end equipment, 3D printers, laser cutters, several electronic devices, plus a very well laid out infrastructure. And students do make projects that really appeal to them. It's beyond what they normally learn during their coursework. They also become creative by doing that. And an example was, there is a startup in an agri-robot developed by an IIT Bombay professor, and her co-founder, Vishwajit, came to me. I was at IIT Bombay 2 days ago, and he said, I was inspired by Tinkerer's Lab. The other program that we run, which has been very successful, it was a transplant from a program that was called Invention Factory at one of the small prestigious engineering institutions in New York called Cooper Union, where we select 20 students to work in teams of 2 each, and they develop their prototype. We absolutely insist that it cannot be just an app. An app can be an app, in support of the actual workable device. And every week they keep improvising it. They are mentored by outside advisors, and at the end of 6 weeks, they participate in a pitch competition, and essentially they also file for provisional patent applications. Over the past 5 years, the 2 years during COVID, we obviously did not run, but we ran this program at IIT Gandhinagar, IIT Jammu, and IIT Bombay. And last year, to give you an idea, we had 740 applications for a selection of 60, because we divided them in teams of 20 students at each of these institutions. This has also helped. These are unbelievable devices. Many of our judges who have come and evaluated said that they have not been able to find in their own research labs over a period of years develop something that has been done in a matter of as low as 6 weeks. So we intend to continue. To give you an idea, this program is now stopped in the US, but it continues in India in a very big way. The third one that we run is, we have what we call as Vishwakarma Award for Engineering Excellence, and we pick themes. So the 3 themes, we had 3 versions of it. This year we did it at IIT, straddled in December, it was December of last year. We did it at IIT Hyderabad, and the themes were in innovative solutions in water and sanitation, in smart mobility, and in clean technology. Another program that Maker Bhawan Foundation runs is, we actually are supporting what was started by IIT Madras Incubation Cell under Professor Tim Gonzalez, called LEAP. And LEAP is essentially run in tier 3 colleges, mainly in the southern part of India. So our whole concept is to make students creative, think out of the box, gain self-confidence, and hopefully they will remain that with them for their lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. So those were excellent examples of how technology has been applied for social impact. Now, if you look at just the rural population in India, there are 900 million people who live in India in multiple, villages, if you will, which is more than the population of Europe and North America combined. So the market for social impact related technologies is huge, So I'm going to ask my first question to Ashish, because he represents an initiative which was started largely with IIT alumni also. It's called IVCAP Ventures. And what I'd like to ask you, Ashish, is how do you select where to invest? So in my opening remarks, I mentioned that there are both tangible and intangible returns on investment. A traditional private equity firm where we invest money, they look at ROIs, they look at the potential for growth and market size, and so on and so forth. How does IVCAP Ventures, A, select programs to invest in, and B, how do people in this room participate also in the IVCAP initiatives?
No, thanks for that question. Just to clarify, we are not a social impact fund. We are meant for profit. And therefore we have the, so to say, the standard commercial ways of looking at ventures. But in addition to that, what we have done, for the larger purpose is twofold. One, that every investment we make, we encourage founders to adopt one SDG goal, one or two SDG goals. And that does not come to us from our LPs. It's simply a conscious choice. And I think many founders, even sometimes, even before we have told them, have, a sense of purpose. So it's very heartening to see, for instance, we have a company called Purple, where they employ sort of differently enabled speech and hearing. So we have those examples across companies. So that is actively encouraged and monitored. And I think that has a huge, like you said, intangible benefit. It has huge intangible benefits to not only the founder, but the team, sense of purpose amongst the team, and for perhaps the larger goals that they do. In addition to that, IVCAP itself is very uniquely kind of structured, because we have built an ecosystem around the alumni of the IITs and the IIMs, largely to drive investing activity. But every fund we invest in, part of it is earmarked literally in the IIM to go back to institutes in order to work on sort of technologies, innovations, which can have a much broader impact across society. So we see that as a multiplier kind of model, where every time we are successful, we give back, and that creates a huge social impact, but that also comes back and then it becomes bigger and goes, so hopefully that will keep multiplying, and we hope to see one day that it has lots of flowers bloom in that jungle.
That's wonderful, when finance and industry come together to make things happen for social impact. My next question I'm going to ask Arjun very specifically, because he has not only started companies that have gone on to become unicorns, but also invested in companies that have got tremendous elements of success and applicability in the social sector. But most importantly, he was telling me about how Mr. Rekhi Singh had given a donation of $1 million to IIT Kharagpur to create a center for understanding, measuring happiness. So I'm going to request him to talk a little bit about the intangible sides of how he selects whether to invest in telemedicine operations or the Magic Pathshala for education and so on and so forth, and what inspires him to do that, and tell us a little bit about the Center for Happiness at IIT Kharagpur.
So I know very little about the center, but it's called the Center for the Science of Happiness. And Satinder Singh Rekhi, who now calls himself Rekhi Singh, sold his company, R Systems, which was public, to PwC some years ago. And he is probably, maybe at the next PIWOT conference we should get him, and he can give you a long talk about how he feels happiness should be measured and what it should be done. But, you know, to answer the first part of your question, I try to look at when I invest, and actually my son does the investing, to see if there's some social impact in that investment. And the whole idea is, how do I put it? I don't like NGOs to go out with a need to raise money all the time. I try and make them become self-sustaining through some mechanism so that then they can grow and build whatever they need to build. Not all of them reach that goal, not all of them can reach that goal, but that's what I try to do. And you try to do things that have an impact. I mean, I'd give you examples of two of them. One, of course, is the Pan-IT initiative that you must have heard of. It's called PARFI, where we train, not just train people for, technique like nurses and electricians and plumbers, but we guarantee them a job. And the model is actually really interesting. We don't train them free. We actually get them to get a loan from NABARD or State Bank or someone, and then they have to pay off that loan. But since they're guaranteed a job, that becomes fairly easy for them to do. And the reason for doing that is simply that once people take a loan, the dropout ratio becomes very, very low, if not close to zero. And so if you do it free, there'll be lots of people who'll drop out because of harvesting or whatever. This way they actually stay on. And the other example is NGO called Antara Foundation, where the objective is to try and reduce the numbers of infant mortality, and they automatically connect to maternal health and malnutrition. And there the model is, India has a fairly substantial public health infrastructure. Every village has a Anganwadi worker and an Asha worker. And every cluster of villages has what we call an auxiliary nurse midwife. But the three of them they maintain registers. They're supposed to meet one day every 2 weeks to exchange data. But the data is in 11 registers. And so there's obviously very little chance that that data gets exchanged. And what happens is, the person who's supposed to provide nutritional inputs to mothers who are lactating or expecting doesn't know where these pregnancies are, whereas the person who's helped them during the pregnancy, doesn't know which houses to go to, which is a high-risk pregnancy, etc., etc. There are lots of issues with how they are managing today. So all we try to do is to set up a process where they manage more efficiently, and they identify high-risk pregnancies that can be taken care of, and that's how you reduce the quantum of infant mortality in some of these areas. It's amazing how much education, how much learnings that we get from this, and ultimately the communities have to want to make it happen. Otherwise you do it, you go away, it'll go back to the old system again. And the amount of effort you got to do to get the health officer, the block health officer, the district health officer, all the way up to the health ministry to actually do this, because their logic is, hamara kaam badh jayega. So bottom line is, this is your job. It is tough. And as Dr. Mashelka mentioned, it is really difficult to get this done. We are introducing technology. Technically, a smartphone, if you enter the data, it can be shared immediately with other people who are part of the group that needs that data. Small things that are getting done, not just at the village, but at the public health centers and community health centers, is seeming to make a big difference. And, it is really satisfying to save even one life, I think. the satisfaction it gives you is better than building a unicorn. Let me put it that way.
Thank you, Arjun. That's wonderful. We've been talking about education and healthcare a lot. So while we talk about how it's scaled, within our own ecosystem, if you will, we have amongst us Professor Kannan Mudgale. I see him somewhere here. He developed spoken tutorials, which has impacted 7 million children by allowing a lot of teaching materials to be converted into 26 languages, because that's one of the barriers that we have in a country like India, where there are at least 1,000 languages that are spoken. So that is another wonderful application that we scale. But when it comes to skills development, since I am based in Washington, D.C., we get to see a lot of visiting dignitaries, and they tell us what their problems are. One of them, as I mentioned earlier, is in nursing care, healthcare. So they said that the northeastern states of Assam and Meghalaya and all that have a declining population, and the average age is going up, and they need more and more healthcare professionals, nursing care and at-home care. So we talked about how do you train 1 million nurses. Parfi is doing a phenomenal job, unbelievable job for many, many years. But how do you take the challenge of training, say, 100 nurses or 200 nurses to 1 million nurses, for example? Similarly, with the large port being constructed in Maharashtra, we were challenged by the Transportation Minister, Nitin Gadkari, to say, how do you train 1,000 crane operators and heavy lift operators? So we brainstormed and we said, this can be done with virtual reality. We can go to software companies and develop applications similar to, a flight simulator, if you will. And then at the end, we can proctor the exams and get them to learn how to actually do this on the job. In Gujarat alone, they said that they need up to 100,000 elevator repairmen, because all the development is virtual. I mean, I'm sorry, not virtual, but vertical. And when an elevator fails, a person living beyond the 4th or 5th floor cannot walk up until some elevator operator comes and a repairman comes and fixes it. So there is a dire need for that kind of a highly scalable, virtual reality-based kind of skills development. And I know Ganesh has done a lot of work in that space through his charitable organization. So Ganesh, can you please comment on how technology can be applied for scaling skills?
No, absolutely. Thanks, Suresh. And just to give you one example, I remember almost 12, 13 years back, we were actually challenged by this exact point you were making. How do you train 100,000 nursing assistants, maybe over different parts of the country? And I remember the exemplar that we visited then was the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs. Because they were deploying across the state of Colorado. They actually had telepresence technology, which is old Cisco telepresence technology. And they had amazing technology where you could demonstrate from Colorado Springs. And across the state, there were people being trained with very little intervention. So my own feeling is, and I'm a great fanatic of blended technology, because one thing that we've all learned through years of losing hair or graying our hair in education is that the whole concept of a blind e-learning methodology doesn't work. Because there's not enough motivation even for educated people to finish courses on SkillsEra or Skillsoft or what have you. So it's much better to have a blended technology. I described one with Skills Alpha a little while earlier, which is more about giving that initial prerequisite learning on maybe face-to-face, then getting into a technology-based self-learning process, and then eventually coming back for workshops where they can actually get their doubts cleared, etc. So I think that's one definite method that we're looking at. And we are finding that, I mean, for instance, in Lighthouse, today we have 2.7 lakh youth who have actually successfully gone through programs and are transforming their families as the main breadwinner. If you look at what we've done in GDD Foundation over the last 11 years, we've actually trained over 2.2 million youth. And that's across both a for-profit and a not-for-profit, which is GDT, which by the way just got listed as GDT Data Solutions on the Bombay Stock Exchange, and GDT Foundation, which is itself scaling with support from very large corporations, like Accenture and Barclays and JP Morgan, etc. So I'm finding that if you have a scalable model which keeps price points low, that delivers scope which is beyond what we are seeing in the rest of the country, you will find adequate donors. So we've never had a problem raising money. The issue really has been to maintain consistency of what we promise and what we deliver. And I think once you do that, Suresh, I think you'll find that technology helps you in maintaining that consistency promise. And that's something we've been very proud of. And even, in fact, we've raised a bunch of money from Michael Susandale Foundation to completely put a cloud-based enablement platform across all our locations where we run lighthouses. And we're like halfway through that project. So once that is done, literally somebody, and in fact we have an invitation from Bihar, for instance, to take the district of Bhojpur, which is Patna to Arad to the surrounding areas, and transform every child's future by using technology. And that's something we're working on. Similarly, in Uttar Pradesh, between Lucknow and the district of Hardoi. And fortunately, I had the experience of being I still am on the board of Swadesh Foundation, which is Ronnie Screwwala's amazing story. And those of you in Maharashtra, make a visit either to 40 villages near Nasik or the whole district of Raigad, which has been completely transformed, not only in skills, but village transformation, schools, irrigation, healthcare, what have you. And that's examples of technology making social work happen in scale. And it doesn't matter whether you're a for-profit organization, it doesn't matter whether you're an NGO, you can no longer afford to say that, look, I will do a little bit of stuff here and there, but you have to say that if I have a great solution, how does a lot of India, a lot of the world eventually benefit from it? So I think that's my plug for technology, if you will, in the social sector.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ganesh. Yeah, please go ahead. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say Ganesh is being very humble. In the early 80s, he was part of the early team in NIT to train programmers. We didn't have enough programmers to manage our computers in those days. And basically look at what that has done in terms of volume of number of people in the programming business. You know, I think training and nursing and some of these areas, while it looks like, hey, it's a small business today, how much will they get paid? If you feel that market is, and the healthcare market is going to be infinite, if I use that term in India, I think everyone in this room should step into some kind of skilling or training for skilling, because that market is really going to grow over the next few years.
Thank you, Arjun. I know that Ganesh has to leave, so I'm going to try and finish this part of the program fast, but I do have a couple of questions for Rajeev and Ron. Rajeev, you are in a very interesting space. With the Swachh Bharat program that was announced many, many years ago, there was talk about building 100 million toilets in India. Wheels Global Foundation actually did a lot of research at the time, and we saw that to get up to that scale, a regular porta potty, as they call them in the US, where they use chemicals to decompose the waste, that porta potty in America costs about $200, which in today's terms is about 16,000 rupees. And that was not really a price point where you could actually deploy 100 million toilets. What are you doing to bring the cost of a toilet down? And what is the technology that you think will help you get to those enormous numbers for a truly successful Swachh Bharat program?
I think it's not one size fits all kind of a solution. Portable toilets cannot be equated with a toilet to be built at home, for example. And to build toilets at home, I think we have really built a lot of technologies, even with something like Ferrocrete, for example, and built several millions of toilets all over India over the last 10 years. And I think we've used multiple technologies. So for example, we spoke about Northeast. We've used some form of cane, for example, in Northeast for making toilets. We've used ferrocement in other parts. We've used bamboo. So there have been lots of different material that has been used, which is available in that specific area. And I think it's not only been technology, but it is actually the will of the people and a massive social engineering change that has happened all over India. To reach that big figure, I mean, I think if you can see outside even now, there has been a huge change over the years. And it continues, and it's a regular process. It keeps improving. Just to give you a small example, it's not just housing, but also mobility. For example, when there are thousands and millions of people gathering, let's say at a Kumbh Mela or at a Pandharpur Wari or whatever, in the past there were not that many solutions available. Today, at Kumbh Mela, there are 150,000 toilets that have been provided at the Kumbh Mela. Now, even that may not be enough, but we have made a big start, and I think that itself is a massive change. Looking at, let's say, even a Pandharpur Wari, I know that in 2014, when I was first approached by a few people from Seva Sahayog, a small foundation in Pune, and along with Government of Maharashtra, we developed a small model by providing only to show as a pilot 200 toilets, portable toilets, to take them over 16 locations in 22 days. And after that success, we built up that program so much that today, I'm proud to say that in 2024, there were more than 10,000 toilets provided at 16 locations over 22 days, and making a huge change for the Varkaris, where it was almost 0% open defecation for most of the people. And I think that for us is a change. It's the result that also matters, and not just the numbers. So I believe that it's all about social engineering. It's about the willingness of people, and like Sir said, that I think training and constant change that has been brought about by multiple factors and all the stakeholders, I think that is what has made it very successful.
Thank you, Rajeev. Thank you very much. That's a great answer. Now, coming to Ron, there was a provost of MIT and also the president of Johns Hopkins who said that if you are sending children to college to get book knowledge, you are wasting your money and your time. Because book knowledge, all the engineering colleges in the world use same books, if not similar books. So I said, what differentiates Johns Hopkins from an MIT? And they said, from the very beginning, we have tried to foster a culture of discovery. So he has said that, you can read and get your book knowledge from anywhere you want to go to. You can get today, lectures on YouTube or wherever. But we want our students to learn by doing. They come to college, they research, they experiment, they learn, they collaborate, and they innovate. And Maker Bhawan is the right direction for doing that at a very early stage. So I have to compliment Ron and Raj Bashirwala and Hemant Kanakia and others who have invested in making this a cultural change. So Ron, my question to you is, you have been a phenomenal philanthropist. You have worked with us in the past at Wheels and continue to give us advice when we need it, or even if we don't need it, if I may say that. So thank you very much for that friendship. So tell us about Maker Bhawan in terms of how do you help these people to not only learn by doing, but also bringing innovation to market.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So what happens is you have to have first the student develop a spark in being able to work with his or her hands and create something, keep improvising, finding out what works, what doesn't work, instead of just listening to a lecture given by a professor. And that remains pretty much lifelong. We have found that students have come back and, for example, this year was a very encouraging one. Mostly what we find, it's true even in the US, that typically these students are in the second and third year of their undergraduate studies. And once they graduate, they don't necessarily follow their passion. What we are seeing now is a trend where, because of startups or whatever, for example, I mentioned about this student called Vishwajit. He graduated from IIT Bombay and he decided that he was going to give it his all. So he ended up teaming up with a professor from an organization called Sitara, Center for Technology Alternatives in Rural Areas. And they are continuing with this development of this agricultural robot. Another example was the Professor Chandramouli Subramaniam from IIT Bombay Chemistry Department. He and his team had won the second prize at the Vishwakarma Award. And one of his students was a heavy user of Tinkerer's Lab. Again, when he graduated, he decided that he was going to take a huge risk when his other colleagues, other classmates were getting significant pay packages. He decided to join the startup. And to give you an idea, because they use direct conversion of solar to heat in a highly efficient manner, I guess I'm allowed to say that now, that what they have been doing is this NCF Green Energy Private Limited, which is a startup spawned through Sign at IIT Bombay. They have an application in Kutch where they're talking about desalination of water in many parts of Kutch district of Gujarat, which is almost a desert. They have TDS values as high as 4,000 and 5,000 parts per million of dissolved solids. And using this technique, they can generate roughly about 1 liter per watt. That is how low the consumption of energy is as against reverse osmosis, which is a very energy intensive process. But these students have now developed the concept of learning by making and learning by doing, and it remains with them pretty much. And I'm pretty sure in the years to come, I think India will make great progress because we start encouraging these students. For example, in the south where they have these certain kinds of nuts that are dried where they use electrical energy, instead of that they're going to use through solar power and converting it directly into heat. Those are the kind of things that are going on right now.
Thank you very much, Ron. In the interest of time, I'm going to stop the panel discussion now. But here's one idea and a challenge, if you will. And it is to each of the panelists. So we heard investors, we heard innovators, and we heard applications for their innovations in various ways. So I'm going to see and request that we'll keep this group alive so that when there are ideas that present themselves to scale through investment, we can call you, Ashish, at IVCAP and perhaps talk about it. Doesn't mean that everything needs to be funded, but you can at least give them a hearing. And we'll also talk to Maker Bhawan and others on the panel to sort of keep that in mind, that let's not just look at spot solutions, but let's keep our minds open to see how we can benefit the 900 million people who want it. So thank you very much. Let's give them a large round of applause. And I'm going to turn it over back to, and I'll come back to give a vote of thanks when we are done with the next two wonderful speakers. So stay back. Don't miss this. This is amazing. I have known Ram Papu and Mr. Ravi, I'm getting Ravi Gupta in the past. So please stand by. This is absolutely a wonderful presentation that we should be here for. So over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Shenoy, firstly for encouraging this wonderful discussion. Your curation of questions for all our eminent panelists truly made this experience invaluable for us. So once again, let's give them a bigger round of applause. What a fantastic conversation this has been. And Mr. Shenoy, before we round up this conversation with all of you on stage, and as rightly he said that we have 2 TED Talks, individual ones on the other side, we'd request all our panelists now, since we've already had the opportunity of felicitating Ashish Wadhwani and Arjun before, but if you could request the 4 of you to now please step forward and allow me an opportunity to now invite Deepak Himmat Singka. He's an IIT alumni from 1967 year. If we could request him to please join us on stage, Mr. Deepak Himmat Singka. Thank you so much, sir. And allow us an opportunity to please humbly felicitate all our eminent panelists, starting with Mr. Shenoy and Mr. Deepak in one frame. Let's give them a bigger round of applause as we have Deepak felicitating Mr. Shenoy. Sir, if we could now, Sir, if you could please proceed towards Mr. Ganesh Natarajan. Let's give them a bigger round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Ganesh Natarajan and Mr. Deepak Himat Singka in one frame. May we request Rajeev Kher and Mr. Deepak to be in one frame. Of course, that's Ron Mehta and then Rajeev Kher as well. And then, of course, we'll get all of them together. So let's have Mr. Deepak Himat Singka, Mr. Ganesh Natarajan, Rajeev Kher, Ron Mehta, Mr. Suresh Shenoy, Ashish Wadhwani, and Arjun Malhotra. A bigger round of applause for all our dignitaries who have taken out their valuable time in joining us and giving us their wisdom on the day 2 of PIWOT 2025. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.